Hello, I'm Joel Blackford with Beth Hesed Sabbath Fellowship. Thank you for joining us. We're virtual only. We're based out of St. Paul, Minnesota. The phone number works if you'd like to contact me. We do the thought behind the thought, the philosophy of eschatology, what you need to know, your reality, our existence. We're studying Revelation 13 today. We're solving a little piece of that as the Shroud of Turin will be used to prove that the Antichrist is who he says he is. I'll show you what that means. It's very interesting. So the news this week, this is dated August 22nd of 2024 from Simon Caldwell from the Catholic Herald. So you would expect them to say something positive, but they're actually stating scientific methods to prove that the Shroud of Turin dates back to the time of Christ. And the scientists are revealing it in nice ways. So the old system was carbon dating. And are you dating something like the mold from the 1300s or the burning from the 1300s? No, right now we're dating it based on X-ray technique that's called wide-angle X-ray scattering. And so they've proven now that this flax cellulose, long chains of sugar molecules which slowly degrade over time to show that the shroud is 2,000 years old based on the conditions it was kept in. And also it seems to be a stitch pattern that matches with Jerusalem. So, it was obviously kept at a good temperature and a good humidity for 13 centuries before it was brought to Chambry, France in the 1350s, thereby taking the shroud's chronology all the way back to the time of Christ. Really good article. This is an AI photograph of Yeshua on the left-hand side. It's interesting. We'll deal with the long hair in a moment here. And then the other picture is more like an artist rendering of Yeshua's face based off the shroud. I like the AI picture. It's very interesting. The main thing is we will know that the Antichrist blood will be AB negative and that his DNA will be known, and so we can test out his lineage. I'm going to get to that. Don't worry. So what are we doing here? We're looking at the news. We're trying to look at the Bible. We're trying to test out prophecy, and the Shroud of Turin seems to be true. So let's do the philosophy of what's going on. First of all, Yeshua with long hair is problematic for me because a good rabbi at that point in time would have had short hair and a long beard. And so when you see pictures of Yeshua with the long hair, you have to realize that if he took the Nazir vow, which would be, we call it the Nazarite. The problem is Netzaret sounds like Nazir, and so it's from Numbers 6, 1 through 21. And so it means you're separated, consecrated. Paul took the same vow in Acts 15 and Acts 18, talked about it in Acts 21. So it's voluntary other than Samson, Samuel, and John the Baptist. You abstain from wine or fermented drink. Do not cut your hair during the service. Do not touch a dead body. So we don't know if Yeshua took the vow, but let's read the scripture and see if it works, okay? So when they were eating, Yeshua took a piece of matzah, made the bracha, and broke it, and gave it to the Talmudim, and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." Also, he took a cup of wine, made the bracha, doesn't say they drank it. He gave it to them, saying, "All of you drink from it, for this is my blood, which ratifies the new covenant, my blood shed on behalf of many, so that they may have their sins forgiven. I tell you, I will not drink this." That sounds like a Nazir vow, whether he started it that day or started it before. That's a Nazir vow. Will not drink this fruit of the vine until the day I drink new wine with you in my Father's kingdom. Matthew 26, 26 through 29. So where are we going with this? The long hair is fine. If he took the Nazir vow, it's fine because he isn't drinking it now. And so if he has long hair now, that makes sense. He will not drink it again until he returns. So now I have read about the Shroud of Turin for many, many years, and this is David Kyle Johnson. He's a professor at King's College in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, on logic, metaphysics, things like that. He's saying basically the Shroud is fake. This is from Medium Magazine, and this is from April 6th of 2023. Many believe that it's the burial shroud of Yeshua, the Christ, the Mashiach. Obviously, one of the many religious relics. He's just saying it's obviously fake. Just do away with it. You can read the article. You can pause if you want to. The point is now we have better evidence. And so there are many theologians that want this to go away, and he's one of them. Well, he's wrong. This is a guy on the other side, Steve Turley, Dr. Steve Turley, and it's called Patriot Professor, and new discovery in the Shroud shocks everyone. And it is shocking to hear this information. So this is a fairly recent video from Steve. If you want to watch it, he goes through the science pretty well. What he's trying to say is that there's also a Sudarium of Oviedo, and that is the burial cloth over his face, and that was found separate from this particular Shroud of Turin. So basically, the blood type is the same, AB negative, very rare. Okay, and I'll prove that to you. And then, so what he's citing is that you have to look at the Sudarium and the Shroud in the same light because they're so similar. So once again, you can pause this if you want to, but the main thing is they're very similar, and I'll go through that as we read through other articles. Okay, so new study of the Shroud of Turin and the Sudarium of Oviedo cover the same person, AB negative blood. Researcher finds the complete correspondence in the points where the blood flow started. The Shroud of Turin and the Sudarium almost certainly covered the cadaver of the same person. This is the conclusion from an investigation that has compared the two relics using forensics and geometry. Specifically, the research was discovered very important coincidences in the principal morphology characteristics, the number and distribution of the blood stains, the unique markings. It's blood, people. It's not paint. And it's rare AB negative blood. There are very few people. And also, I'll show you something incredible where blood stays red when you're tortured. Yeah, I'll show you that in a little bit here. But all of these points demonstrate there's compatibility between the cloths. Very interesting, very interesting. So this is Eliatia, very interesting article. Once again, you can see the face and the markings and the blood and things like that. They seem to match up. So once again, sacred blood, sacred image from 2001. The proof beyond reasonable doubt that the Shroud of Turin and the Sudarium once covered the bleeding head of the same man. Very interesting. Okay, so continuing on. Does pollen prove the shroud authentic? And this is from, oh goodness, I thought I dated this, but I guess not. Anyway, it's from Biblical Archaeology, and it's from Vaughn M. Bryant Jr. So basically what he's getting at is the flora of the Shroud of Turin focuses on the evidence of floral remains on the shroud and explains why the four authors believe these remains confirm that the shroud dates to before the 8th century AD. They claim the pollen and images of flowers on the shroud suggest that the shroud came from the vicinity of Jerusalem. So we have trauma that makes the blood very red. Okay, we have human AB blood that's similar between the two artifacts and really is rare in its own stead. Same victim, same blood chemistry. Linens, very similar linen and thread type. Okay, same pollen, same time. And then we have this odd photo negative with light. The way it's produced, it's unreproducible by our scientists today. So very interesting. So let's look at the blood. Okay, we have A, we have B, we have AB, and O. The most rare is AB negative. That seems to be Yeshua's blood. Now, if you're an Orthodox Jew today, the most typical blood types for you would be AB negative and O negative. I'll tell you that I'm O negative, okay? And so it's interesting then, antibodies in plasma, there are none for AB. And A and B antigens are for AB. Okay, so it's interesting that would be his type of blood, and so he had AB negative blood type on the Shroud of Turin and also the face cloth. Okay, and 1% of the population is AB negative. Very interesting. Okay, now. This is where we're going to throw some prophecy at you, then I'm going to pull it back, and we'll go through the article from an independent source, and then we'll come back to this. This is Rebecca Sterling. This is her David Strode, A Voice Crying in the Wilderness video, the Stadium HD, and the 5th video. And so the linen again, Jesus, the ace, the Antichrist, the DNA match. You'll see this. I'll get to this later on, but basically I'll just do a couple of quotes to tease you. Burial cloth, yes, and there's an imprint on it, and it is Jesus, and she doesn't understand why, but they'll use this to test out the Antichrist. And I'll give you the specifics. Don't worry, I'll get to it. DNA off the vet and blood samples, and yes, this person who is our candidate for the Antichrist. So this is all Revelation 13. Okay, so this is the article from Daily Mail. This came out just a few days ago, the 19th of August, 2024. And so is this proof that the Turin Shroud is real? Scientists make startling discovery after analyzing the cloth Jesus was buried in. I like the article because it's an independent place, Daily Mail. I love my Catholic friends, but they're a little bit biased. They want it to be real, although the Pope doesn't necessarily believe it, but we'll talk about the Pope later on. So I'm just going to read it to you. Sorry. A controversial linen shroud, regarded by some to be the one Jesus was buried in, has baffled the world for more than many centuries, 7, 8 centuries. When it was first exhibited in the 1350s, the Shroud of Turin was touted as the actual burial shroud used to wrap the mutilated body of Christ after his crucifixion. Also known as the Holy Shroud, it bears a faint image of the front and back of a bearded man who many believers believe is Jesus' body miraculously imprinted onto the fabric. Okay, so they used this X-ray technique, and they were able to prove more information better than, that carbon dating method. But research in the 1980s appeared to debunk the idea that it was real after dating it to the Middle Ages, hundreds of years after Christ's death. Now Italian researchers who use this new X-ray technique to date the material have confirmed it's manufactured around the time of Jesus 2,000 years ago. They say that the fact that the timelines add up lends credence to the idea that the faint blood-stained pattern of a man with his arms folded in front were left behind by Jesus' dead body. Okay, so once again, this is Daily Mail. The Bible states that Joseph of Arimathea wrapped up the body in linen shroud and placed it inside the tomb. We know it's linen. So there it is in Matthew 27. Then Joseph took the body and wrapped it up in new linen cloth. He put Jesus' body in a new tomb that he had dug in a wall of rock. Then he closed the tomb by rolling a very large stone to cover the entrance. After he did this, he went away. The burial cloth has captivated the imagination of historians, church chiefs, skeptics, and Catholics since it was first presented to the public in the 1350s. Once again, this is all Daily Mail. It was preserved since 1578 in the Royal Chapel of the Cathedral of San Giovanni Battista in Turin, Italy. The cloth appears to show faint, brownish images on the front and back depicting a gaunt man with sunken eyes who was about 5'7" to 6 feet tall. Okay, standard. Markings of the body also correspond to crucifixion wounds of Jesus mentioned in the Bible, including thorn marks on the head, lacerations on the back, and bruises on the shoulders. Historians have suggested the cross he carried on his shoulders weighed about 300 pounds, which would have been left contusions. The Bible states Jesus was whipped by Romans, aligning with the lacerations on the back, which also placed a crown of thorns on his head before crucifixion. In 1988, a team of international researchers analyzed a small piece of the shroud using carbon dating and determined the cloth seemed to have been manufactured sometime between 1260 and 1390 AD. The technique used to decay the radioactive isotope of carbon, 14C, is a measure of time and date. It'll date objects containing carbon-bearing material. Some experts have said that the linen's authenticity should no longer be disputed, claiming it was made from flax grown in the Middle East. Yes, it was, and features a helmet-style crown of thorns on the man's face. Very interesting. However, others have held onto the notion that it's fake due to the 1988 radiocarbon dating analysis conducted at 3 different labs, which all determined it was only 7 centuries old. But what were they testing? Were they testing the mold that was, saved from the 1300s? So we're seeming to get a clearer picture of what's going on. For the new study, scientists at Italy's Institute of Crystallography of the National Research Council conducted a recent study using wide-angle, so a wax, that X-ray system. The technique measures the natural aging of flax cellulose and converts it to the time since the manufacture. The team studied 8 samples of fabric from the Shroud of Turin, putting them under the X-ray to uncover tiny details of the linen structure and cellulose patterns. Cellulose is made up of long chains of sugar molecules, it's from flax, linked together that break down, showing how long a garment or cloth has been around. To date the shroud, the team used specific aging parameters, including temperature and humidity, which caused significant breakdown of cellulose. Based on the amount of breakdown, the team determined the Shroud of Turin was likely kept at a temperature at above 72.5 degrees Fahrenheit and a relative humidity of 55% for about 13 centuries before it arrived in Europe. It has been kept in different conditions. If it had been kept in different conditions, the aging would have been different. So it makes sense that it's 2,000 years old. Okay, it hits that mark. Research then compared the cellulose breakdown of the shroud to other linens found in Masada in Israel that date back to the 1st century. The data profiles were fully compatible with analogous measurements obtained on a linen sample whose dating, according to historical records, was 55 to 74 AD, found at Masada, Israel. So this is Herod's famous fortress built on limestone bedrock overlooking the Dead Sea, reads the study in the journal Heritage. Very interesting so far. Okay, so it matches with Masada time frame. The team also compared the shroud with samples of linens manufactured between 1260 and 1390, finding none were a match. The pattern, there are specific patterns in weaving, and it doesn't match. This matches with Israel in the 1st century. To make the present result compatible with that of the 1988 radiocarbon test, the Shroud of Turin would have been conserved during this hypothetical 7 centuries of life at a secular room temperature very close to the maximum values registered on the Earth. And it wasn't. So the leading author made a statement that the 1988 test should be deemed as incorrect because the fabric samples are usually subject to all kinds of contamination, which cannot be completely removed from the dated specimen. If the cleaning procedure of the sample is not thoroughly performed, carbon 14 dating is not reliable, which it was not. So continuing on from more of the Daily Mail, this may have been the case in 1988, as confirmed by the experimental evidence showing that when moving from the periphery towards the center of the sheet along the longest side, there was a significant increase in carbon-14. Interesting. Scientists have long been studying the Shroud of Turin with hopes of solving the centuries-old mystery. More than 170 peer-reviewed academic papers have been published about the mysterious linen since the 80s, with many concluded it could be genuine. Testing in the 70s looked at whether the images were made through a painting, scorching, or other agents, but none could be confirmed. It isn't painting. It's blood, people. It's AB negative, and it's rare, and the illumination can't be reproduced. So, another group of experts from the Institute of Crystallography announced that in 2017 that they had found evidence that the shroud featured blood of a torture victim. They claimed to have identified substances like creatine and ferritin that are usually found in patients who suffer incredible forceful traumas. The alleged findings contradicted claims that the face of Jesus was painted on by forgers in medieval times. Okay, so here's the problem. If he died and here, I'll just read the article down below. This is from Noel Joshua Hadley. Okay, the reason you've arrived to hear the latest news, some of you, which I've already given away, involves Italy Institute, and then the scientists and things like that, called a wide-angle X-ray. 8 samples across the fabric. The process allows researchers to examine the garment at microscopic level, enabling them to determine the time of the shroud was actually manufactured. Will you be happy to know the results are in that the fabric is a match with fabric that is confirmed to have come from the siege of Masada in 55 to 74 AD, which is to say the shroud was manufactured approximately 2,000 years ago. It's authentic. Continuing on with Noel, bilirubin is a pigment that enters the blood with the breakdown of red cells under conditions of great stress and suffering, particularly this type of torture, which the person in the shroud was forced to endure, and we're taking 24 to 36 hours of torture. So it looks like a long period of torture, and it just built up this bilirubin in the system. His liver would have eventually flooded the bloodstream with bilirubin enzyme, which I have already described. In that precise moment, the blood would have remained red. That's why it's so red. It looks like paint. Normally, blood kind of becomes blackish and kind of, gross. But this remained as red blood. So regarding, lower left now. The other thing about the forger is that he would have had to have chosen a model already in rigor mortis, because Yeshua was in rigor mortis. Look at those locked knees. Why don't you? That's a stiffened body. His model would have been placed in the shroud for no more than or no less than 48 to 72 hours. Furthermore, the body didn't see decay. Incredible. So there you go. More reasons to believe in the shroud. And to finish up with Noel Joshua Hadley, regarding the actual cloth, it is linen, making it biblical. Its length and width are even cubits, also biblical, whereas the official narrative has medieval Europe employing a different unit of measurement entirely. Furthermore, there are no medieval examples of this 3-in-1 herringbone pattern used to make the fabric. The C14 people keep insisting it is so, but they can keep to their wishful thinking. The only matches are the ancient ones deriving from the Near East. To be more specific, Palestine. Not even Egypt twisted the strands in the direction of the shroud. But I'm not done yet. So he does more. So nice job. Now we're going to go into Rebecca Sterling and the prophecy side of this. So this is from her video number 5 again, the stadium. The stadium looks like a toilet bowl to her. And what you need to be aware of is that according to her findings, what she saw in the vision, the Pope will call a peace conference. This is Revelation 13. So this should be the right Pope, I assume so, and this would be at about the midpoint of the Great Tribulation. He will introduce us to aliens, and he will introduce us to seed swapping, Revelation 13, the Antichrist, and many other things. The time would be mid-trib, okay? And this is Rebecca Sterling again. So you'll see extra dimensionals, we'll call them, and we will be thirsty at this point in time. So she says these extra dimensionals will offer us water-making abilities. And so from Revelation 7:16, they will never again be hungry. They will never again be thirsty. The sun will not literally fall on them, nor will any burning heat. So basically what she's saying, you will know it's the midpoint because you will see the Pope basically anointing the Antichrist. So, and you'll have 3 days of hell on earth during that midpoint. So this is all Revelation 13. It matches. It all matches. So once again, the Pope. And this is her little diorama of the Pope on the left-hand side. Then the Pope with the aliens. And that's AI generated, which is interesting. Then the ABDA that she says the Antichrist must be a direct bloodline heir of Jesus. Okay? Very interesting. Then on the upper right-hand side, and that's the Antichrist pictured up there. On the right-hand side, you have the Antichrist in a figurine type of a situation with this woman that seems to be an alien, and then also other aliens down below and other, I don't know, Nephilim we'll call them, okay? So basically, you're going to have players show up at this toilet bowl, which is a Rome stadium, and you can see it to this day, and so that's right off the internet. And then, just so you're aware of this seed mingling thing that's going on, this is from Daniel 2, okay? So they shall mingle themselves with the seed. So let's just read Daniel 2:44 through 44, 42 through 44. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas you sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. And in the days these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. That's Yeshua returning. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. So that's Yeshua returning. So we have the figurine, and finally it's broken, but you see the mixture at the end there, the seed of men, where you see at this particular event, Revelation 13, the mixing of seed, where the aliens, the EDs, we'll call them extra dimensionals, will do a seed swap. Okay? Then you'll also see in Revelation 13 the head wound, which is Revelation 13:3, and for the heads of the beast seem to have been have received a fatal wound, but the fatal wound had been healed. So Rebecca goes through that in her video. It's very interesting, and you'll also have 10 big big tech horns, so you'll have you'll have the 7 heads, which I argue are the 7 presidents, the last presidential terms, say from Nixon forward through Trump, and because they're the kings of the world, they have the ability to nuke the world, so they're the kings, okay? And the horns are big tech, and the mountains are the same as the heads, and so we put our kings on mountains, on Mount Rushmore. So just keep that in mind. So, we'll have this all formulating. I want to give you the backstory because we had a debate the other day about Gog versus the Antichrist. They said they're two separate people. So I'll just read it to you. Gog Obama will work with the kings. He is a king. He's one of the 7 so far. He's the 6th, okay? Against Israel. He'll work against Israel externally by forging a 70-nation kings agreement to attack Israel simultaneously at the end of the 7 years. The UN trusts Obama. He destabilizes and attacks, and he loves Iran, okay? On the other hand, the Antichrist will work internally to deceive Israel. He's a Benedict Arnold. He will deceive them into believing he can bring them peace. Jews don't trust Obama, so Obama can't be the Antichrist, but he can be Gog. And the Antichrist has to be somebody that the Jews will trust, like a Henry Kissinger. Okay, so every Orthodox beastly effort will cause curses from God. So the betrayal factor is huge. And so I know Orthodox Jews. They do not trust Obama. I mean, that's the one common denominator. Nobody that's Orthodox Jew trusts Obama. Okay? On the other hand, you need somebody that's a Benedict Arnold, and that's what the beast will do. He will work internally with them and work very closely. King Charles isn't that guy. So when you read stories about this with King Charles, with the forehead and the hand and stuff like that, the right hand, Tim Cohen's a nice guy, but yeah, you're wrong. He's going to die of pancreatic cancer within 2 years. Okay, so it deceives the people to receive the mark on his right hand or on his forehead, preventing anyone from buying or selling unless he has the mark. It's not King Charles. He's not going to be a factor. Okay, so I want to tell you one more time that the beast is separate from Gog. And I argue that Gog is a king on the earth and Gog is Obama. Okay, so I saw the beast and the kings, and I'm arguing once again, Gog is a king of the earth. And they're all gathered together to do battle with the rider of the horse and his army. That's Yeshua. But the beast was taken captive, and with it the false prophet who, in his presence, had done the miracles which he had used to deceive those who had received the mark of the beast and those who had worshipped his image. The beast and the false prophet were both thrown alive into the lake of fire. So do you see that if Gog is a king, that he is completely separate from the beast and the false prophet? Okay, so the main thing is then Obama will be killed with the sword. He will be buried in Israel, which is I want to say it's Ezekiel 39:11. So basically, kings versus people, the beast and the false prophet, separate, very separate. And Obama is just a king. One more reason for Gog being Obama and the king of Magog, we'll call it. Okay, so this is from the Hebrew. You don't read Hebrew well, but look at the red letters, reading from right to left. Aleph, Vav, Beit, Aleph, Mem, Hey. That the gematria for that is 55, which is probably meaningless. But King Obama, Gog, he hates God. He hates Israel and the Jews. He loves Iran. And he funnels cash to terror groups at alarming rates. Okay, and there he is in Ezekiel 38. There's Obama. I believe, other people cite it too, that Obama seems to be Gog. He's not the Antichrist. So, then to finish up with Rebecca, she said, the Antichrist will speak tomorrow in Jerusalem. So after he has this head wound, and then he resurrects 3-ish days later, then he makes a speech and he says, I will speak to you tomorrow in Jerusalem about peace. And so the little figurine there, I'm arguing that it's on the Temple Mount that he'll speak, and that he'll be close to the Holy of Holies. We'll see. And the Holy of Holies, I say, is the Dome of the Spirits. Okay, so where are we? We're in the birth pangs. We are not in the tribulation. We are not in the Great Tribulation. The Shroud of Turin, I believe, is real. It dates back to the 1st century. I believe that they will use that, like Rebecca talked about, to verify the AC is the right choice to be the AC. Okay? And so, yeah, we will know his blood type, and we will know his blood, the AB blood and DNA and things like that. So it's going to be very interesting moving forward that we have a way to test him out, that he is of the lineage of Yeshua. Very interesting, people. You work on you. You need clean garments. You can't be naked. You're going to get married to Yeshua on either Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur or Sukkot. You'll need clean garments. It's a wedding. Get ready for it. Thank you very much for your time. God bless. and we'll talk to you again next week. God bless.